Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Gomes. I'd like to talk to you right now about Vedic astrology, what it means to you as a person, what it means to the world overall, and also to work on some predictions for the different signs, and also for the world in general. Like, I'm just repositioning the computer for the best possible light. So, if you do wish to contact me for lessons or reading, please do so. My number is 508 525 0001. I'll repeat that. Yes, my number is 508 525 0001. I can also be contacted at GaryGomesG@gmail.com. And I will try to put those in the contact information on the actual page. I'm really happy to notice that I've hit well over 500 subscribers, uh, and it's continuing to go up. So I'm really pleased with that. Please do subscribe, like, comment. I do appreciate your feedback, and I do pay attention to it. Okay, so that having been said, uh, also for those of you interested in Saptarishi astrology, I am working on a voluntary basis with them to try to draw more speakers in, to try to draw more writers in. So if you want to write or speak about Vedic astrology, please contact me. Again, contact me at my phone number 508 525 0001. That's the easiest way to contact me, and you can text me at that number. All right, so let's go on to the chart because I don't want to hold you up any more than I absolutely have to. Also, school is starting this year. School has essentially started. I do the online classes I do individually are part of the school. I'm also hoping to do group classes, which could result in savings for you. And if you're interested in readings, again, I do all kinds of readings. And I have 30 plus years experience in this field. So, uh, and I will also be doing videos on remedial measures in Vedic astrology. You know, that is essentially what to do if you're encountering problems, and also um, problems in your life, or animosities in your life. And I'll also be doing some small lessons. I do include small lessons or analyses of how I reach my conclusions in these videos. Uh, but I'll try not to take up as much time with those because I had some comments that they'd like to see the explanations a little bit more muted. So I'm going to try a variety of different approaches, but certain aspects of me will always come out, and I'm not ashamed of that. I'm not ashamed of, I'm not embarrassed by how I interpret or by how I present myself. And I think that's an important lesson for us all to learn. We have all different presentation styles, and there are a lot of good astrologers online. Naturally, I think I have a special um, insider approach because otherwise I wouldn't be broadcasting the way I am, and that's just me. So I hope you find the information useful. I have had some luck with predictions, especially over the past few months, especially in regards to the media predictions, but that's not really surprising to me just because the media is, especially in the United States chart, the media is I'm just trying to think of a good way to put it because I don't want to sound like I'm down on the media. I'm not really. Essentially um, country has every country, every part of the world has different ways of communicating what's important to its people. But the Mercury controls media. Mercury in the United States is connected very strongly with Rahu. So there'll be a lot of what I would call distractions or exaggerations in media in this particular country. I'm not saying it doesn't happen anywhere else. It's just this particular country's viewpoint of communications is very. Uh, we're a business-oriented society. It's sort of like um, engaging in a denial of reality to to take us away from that, is to assume that everybody does these things they do because they don't get paid or they do it out of the goodness of their hearts. Um, Money's an essential driver in virtually every country in the world. And those are the reasons why we see at times money and power. That's why we see at times either distortions or exaggerations. Um, and these are for influence or to gain advantage. Um, so I'm not judging it. I'm just saying that's why it happens. Okay. All right. So let's go to the chart and look at. So this past week, we've had a lot of. So the rising sign is Gemini, which is one of the reasons I'm focusing so much on media in these activities or in these presentations. But the rising sign is Gemini. Mars is in Gemini. And just quickly, Mars is aspecting the fourth house. So there's a kind of a desire to disrupt things, kind of a desire to get angry at people. Um, and that anger is usually communicated through communications. Um, and just quickly, if you go to the first floor being in the 10th house, along with Sun and Jupiter, we can see a lot of government involvement and essentially preaching from all sides of media, government, and this quickly. I'm just going to go over these chart factors quickly. Some concerns, some panic over financial issues because we have Rahu and Venus together in the 11th house of gains. Now, this could change at any time of day. If I did this broadcast at any other time than around 10:30 in the morning on a Saturday. And so this is March 25th, we're talking about the chart. And the moon is in uh, Taurus, so it's in its exalted sign. So that's a good thing. But it's also in the house of loss, so it's the second lord we're here in the house of loss. And that again kind of increases and is also a sign connected with rescue. Okay, so essentially we have heard discussion about bailouts, but one other thing, Saturn's aspecting Venus Rahu, so this doesn't look good for short-term economic life, certainly. The other thing is we have K2 in the 5th house with Libra, so investments and markets are going to be affected adversely by this particular combination. In terms of, let's say, charts overall, this has some good attributes to it and some negative attributes to it. Financially, it's not so great. I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean people will be bankrupted overnight, but we have had a run on banks, several banks, and that will probably continue um, until at least April, and I think throughout the next 6 months or so. So it won't be quite as intense as right now, just because of this combination right here. So we went from this period of like intense over optimism because of Venus and Jupiter in Pisces to this period right now of this Venus and Rahu combination. And Mars is having everybody fight about policy. And this isn't just in the United States. This is economic policy is a big issue around the world right now. So let me see if I can share this chart with you. Hold on a second. I don't think I am. Let me just do this. And that's a debilitated Mercury. My apologies, folks. So I'm going to show you the screen again. Okay, so I'm going to do it for a third time. And I hope I didn't get a black screen. If I did, I'll try to fix it later on. Here. Okay, so you can see me and see the screen right now. And so again, just recapping, Mars in the first, it's the Lord of the 11th house. So it's really, this chart is all about gains. Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury are all in the 11th house. Mercury is weak by sign placement, very weak. Moon is very strong by sign placement, but it's in the 12th house. So this indicates that internationally there'll be coming problems. And Moon's about to enter with Mars, and this indicates there'll be some domestic anger over the next few days. Okay. K2 is in the 5th, and that's been a problem for us until really, it's going to be a problem for everybody really until around November of this year. I tend to be more conservative in looking at the node influences, and governments will be in trouble until the end of the year, just because of Rahu in Aries. Saturn's aspecting Aries as well. That's going to continue for another couple of years. So this will indicate a lot of problems, a lot of not necessarily deadlock, but a lot of frugality or cheapness from government. So government's cutting back more so than spending money. And it indicates more tightening of things. So we're going to have a tightening economic environment. The good part of this is there may be a chance to adjust or to stop panics over the next few months, but unfortunately, I think it'll result in economic contraction, not economic expansion. And you'll have a lot of people about that, especially over the next 4 to 5 months. On top of that, we have an eclipse coming in April, late April, early May, and another eclipse coming in September. And those are occurring in Libra, which is a sign of trade and relationships, and also in Aries, which is a sign of leadership. So I would watch out for major changes in leadership, major changes in trade, and during that period. We're going to be we're going to be a little stupid because Saturn's aspecting Jupiter, and there won't be a lot of interest in taking chances to fix things. So that's one of the problems we're going to run into. This isn't necessarily catastrophic. These corrections in economies take place at various times. The thing I do see different this time is there will be a lot more anger if big money, so we're looking at Jupiter and Venus and over here, where there's going to be a lot less satisfaction with big money people being helped than previously, because this combination indicates public ire or public anger at that kind of attack being taken. And you may see some some actual violence come out of that, and that looks more likely around um, and more attacks on the press as well, and that looks more likely around May, June to me, March, April, May. But we'll see what happens. This is an interesting chart because we have a strong potential for violence in communications, strong potential for government overreach, but also for government deadlock, especially within a couple of months. And over this coming week, a lot of miscommunications because of Mercury. And Mercury is going to be in this sign for about another 2 weeks. Yeah, that's what I can see. About another 2 weeks. Venus will move into Taurus shortly, within about 2 weeks. So that should make that should help some people out, so people will feel a little bit of pressure coming up. And finally, Saturn, but Saturn's aspect on Rahu is never really good. So again, but again, it's going to be a difficult time, but you will see a lot of innovations being made with existing structures with Saturn there in Aquarius. So let's go to the charts, the individual charts, and we'll talk about some more about the politics around the world in a few minutes. Okay, so let's look at individual birth charts and essentially, and I'll go into some more analysis. I'll go into things that I'm seeing in the Navamsha chart when I get to the second part. But basically, so we have Rahu and Venus in the first house in Aries. So this is for the individual signs. Now we're going to the individual signs. That does indicate there's a lot of dissatisfaction in relationships, a lot of people wanting more out of relationships because of K2 being in the seventh house and being essentially trying to think of a good way to put it. People not really seeming connected or attached to their relationships. Moon in Taurus, this should be a good week for financial growth for Aries rising or sun or moon. And Mars in the third house, a lot more aggression, a lot more focus on people with this particular rising sun or moon sign looking out for themselves or looking out for them for their life, for their livelihood. For Saturn is in the 11th house, so slow gains with some gains. And we have this cluster of planets in the 12th house, which indicates, to me at least, a lot of expenses happening for Aries, sun, moon, or rising signs. So not as much luck. If they can manage to save, that's a good thing. If they can manage to not invest but save, if they can manage to, if the nature of their livelihood deals with people from other cities or other countries, that'll be fortunate. But they're not going to make a lot of money from home life. For Taurus has moon in the first house. That's very good. This is the moon's best possible placement, and it should indicate public will calm down just a little bit, but there'll be a little bit of anger in terms of financial security, and there'll be a lot more aggression in terms of relationship life showing up from this particular sign placement. K2's in the sixth, and again, this sign has to be really careful about illnesses and people cheating in. It has to be careful about what it eats. Saturn's in the 10th house, which is very good for career advancement, for career success, for career luck, but it will require a lot of effort. And all these planets in the 11th house do indicate financial gains, but also Taurus will find a lot of their money tends to go unnecessarily. this is a highly sexualized placement for people overall. So a lot of people will be looking to get involved in affairs, and I wouldn't recommend it because they'll tend to be either disappointing or obsessive, but that's the nature of this particular sign placement. Stay out of romantic relationships for, I would say, for about another couple of weeks, unless you don't want the romantic relationship to last. For Gemini, Gemini has Mars in the first house. Mars is the Lord of the 11th house. And so there's a lot of focus on financial gains, but that 11th house is afflicted by Saturn and Rahu. So there'll be some unrealistic expectations over financially what you'll be able to pull in. The other thing is you have exalted moon as Lord of the second house, so that'll give expenditures for good reasons, but there'll still be expenses, okay? And K2's in the fifth house, some problems or difficulties with children. And I think overall from the chart, children will seem to be a little bit lonely or even a little bit depressed. So you'll have to watch out for that with your kids. And very dissatisfied. Saturn's in the ninth house, and that particular placement is actually good for eventual gains. And career life actually looks like it's improving a lot for this particular sign, although Mercury's weak. So I'm not really expecting a lot of fame or a lot of recognition, a lot of expanse in finances for about another couple of weeks. Venus is in the 11th house. Again, this is one of those placements which is tantalizing. The person will definitely get some fame, they'll get some recognition, but the amount of money they'll get from it will be far less than they expect. It's just, we're in this sort of a period, I would call it an uncertain period. People are still working. I mean, don't get me wrong, people are still working, still bringing in money, but there's a little bit of hesitancy about spending, or I would even say panicky spending, spending compulsively as opposed to out of need. For Cancer, Cancer is Cancer's Lord is the moon. It's well placed in its best possible position in the 11th house. It'll only get better over the next couple of days. Then towards the end of the week, this sign will get a little bit angry, but I would say this will be around Tuesday to Thursday, and then towards the end of the week, it'll calm down and start to bring some more money in again. K2's in the fourth house. This person will not be that connected with home. They'll be obsessed with career. They'll be expecting to make big impressions on people in financial quarters, but that Saturn in the eighth house makes it difficult for them to make a lasting impact. And especially in terms of, let's say, growth, it's a slow growth combination as opposed to a fast growth combination. For the rest of the chart, though, some financial growth is indeed indicated. Some career recognition is indeed indicated because Rahu and Venus are in the 11th house. For Leo, Leo has the sun's in the 8th house, so this sign is a little bit down on itself, or a little bit feeling a little bit isolated. That combination with the sun and Mercury, this sign will be a little bit disappointed, I think, until really around next month. Then it'll start to really explode and be very dominant. Now without some interference, but the sun will be in its exalted sign. Mercury will be in Aries, which is good for confidence for the sign. The other thing we have to look at is in terms of this chart. K2's in the third house, so it gives this sign a lot of courage. Saturn's in the is in the seventh house, so relationship life will seem to be a bit confining or depressive, and although stable. And Rahu and Venus are in the ninth house, so you should see some good financial growth for this chart over the next couple of weeks. So a lot of financial indicators are strong. It's just that you'll have to wait for at least a couple of weeks to see them for Leo. For Virgo, and again, I have to keep reminding you, we're using what's called a sidereal zodiac. This is roughly, this changes signs around the 15th of the month. So Virgo starts around September 15th, goes through October 15th for a sidereal zodiac. Okay, so for Virgo, K2's in the second house, so again, some problems with gathering money or personal finances. Let's see now. Sun, Mercury, and Jupiter, some confusion over relationship life. Saturn is in the sixth house, some difficulty in overcoming bad habits or even in career advancement because the sixth house is connected with ambition. These people might feel motivated to get into politics or influence other people. But there's some concern about losing what they have if they do that. Moon is in the ninth house. That's a generally good placement for financial gains for this sign. And Mars is in the 10th house, so this sign will feel more energy than it has recently. So that's a good thing. So, but this K2 in Libra has sort of dominated the chart, especially in terms of finances, and especially in terms of the ability to make money and the ability to be recognized for Libra. So Libra has a lot of focus on seventh house. It wants to impress other people. It wants to have fame or recognition from other people. That'll be tough to do for a couple of months, to be honest, for this sign, but it will come. But it will come around, I would say around March. I'm sorry, we're in March, around May or so. The other combination here, and that's around the same time as we'll be feeling the effects of the eclipse, so it really won't be all that. It won't be scandalous. I mean, if Libra takes a lot of action right now, it can result in a downgrade in its reputation. So Librans have to be really careful about what they say and do. But basically, from the chart, you have Sun, Jupiter, and Mercury in the sixth house. That's good for self-improvement. It's not good for success. It feels like you're swimming against the tide all the time. Saturn's in the fifth house. That's actually good for study. It's good for going back and doing research, and it's somewhat good for political aspirations. And Venus is with Rahu in the seventh house, so relationship partners will be difficult to deal with, or they'll want a lot of attention. That's not necessarily a bad thing. This sign has been a little bit preoccupied for the past year or so. So I mean, this is not surprising. The relationship partners would seem to be a little bit more more lonely or more ambitious or more impatient. Moves in the eighth, not a bad placement, but career life is expanded through research, is expanded through digging behind the scenes, is expanded through a lot of hard work, a lot of focus on digging underneath the surface as opposed to looking what's on top and what's on top. Mars is in the ninth house, not a bad placement for Libra. It does tend to give some increase in luck, but only if the sign is a little bit aggressive. So there are some contradictory elements for Libra here, and I'll tell you what they are. So you have to be aggressive in terms of promoting your luck, in terms of promoting money, but there'll be resistance from some people who just won't want to deal with you. They'll want you to study more, they'll want you to do more. For Librans, you have to push back this week because essentially you can always improve your skills. There'll be some moments over the next month or so where you'll feel it absolutely necessary to engage in new activities and engage in new ways of doing things. So but the study is important. The self work is important. So anything you can do to improve your confidence is going to be extremely important. And your confidence is going to be off the charts next month, excuse me. So just keep that in mind. And so again, not a bad chart for Libra rising, just not really, just some struggles and some research to overcome problems you've been having. Okay. For Scorpio has moon in the 7th house, so this is good for relationship life. It'll bring nice people into your life relationship wise. However, they won't have a lot of money, and there'll also be a little bit of argument, but basically these aren't bad people. Excuse me, I had something in my eye. And basically, Saturn aspecting Venus and Rahu, this sign has to be careful about health issues. There can be a little bit of hypochondria connected with the sign, but I wouldn't ignore any health issues that come up, especially connected with things like diet or exercise. And Jupiter, Mercury, and Sun are in the 5th house. So this is actually a good placement for this particular chart in terms of the acquisition of wealth or the acquisition of power. But again, be careful because Mercury is a little bit weak, and I would especially stay away from risky investments for this sign. For Sagittarius, we have 3 planets in the 4th house. That should be good for home life. A lot of your focus will be on home activity. A lot of it will be on career as well, like everybody's will. And also Saturn's in the 3rd house. It will make you unafraid of work. The only drawback is you have Rahu and Venus in the 5th house with children or creative activities will seem to command a lot of your time. And Moon is in the 6th house. Again, this is not a bad placement for health. Moon in the 6th and in 6th Altus sign is very good for health and for overcoming bad habits. Mars is in the 7th house. Be careful about getting into arguments with relationship partners. That's a little bit tricky. And finally, you get over this K2 in the 11th house. Again, watch out for friends. Watch out for people who say that you're allies. I know that's been a repetitive theme I've been telling Sag for months, but it's really true. These are people born between December 15th and January 15th. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in the 2nd house, so the focus will be on money and security. Jupiter, Mercury, and Sun, excuse me, in the 3rd house. It's good for realizing goals, for financial goals, but there will be some losses connected with that if you go too extreme in it. And so be careful. You can invest, but be prudent about it. Be very careful about it. Do a lot of investigation because from this sign placement, you have Mars in the 6th house that favors investigation for the sign. Moon is in the 5th. You can get some short-term investment gains from that combination, but Venus is with Rahu. I wouldn't keep my money in any place for too long. So, like, let's say you're a crypto fan and you get this great crypto deal, get it in and get it out. crypto as a market, I laid out my prejudice. I've analyzed the chart on crypto before. It's an investment I don't trust. I trust it for short spurts of enthusiasm. I don't trust it as a long-term investment, which puts me at odds with several of my fellow Vedic astrologers, but that's how I feel about it. Over time, I think it'll be good. Right now, I'd avoid it over the next few years, to be honest with you. The other thing is we have K2 in the 10th house. So again, lack of career recognition, lack of career activity, but a lot of frustration because this Venus is aspect in that K2. It wants some recognition. So the way you can do that is through self-promotion. I wouldn't do it too aggressively, as will be read it the wrong way, but there is a possibility of self-promotion on the job. Saturn is in the first house for Aquarius rising. That's really a generally good placement. It's what's called a Sashi Yoga. It's good for innovation, for actually to a certain extent for revealing the truth and for acceptance of alternative remedies. So that's a good thing. Jupiter and Sun are in the second house. The sign is relatively well disposed this month. Venus, the Lord of the fourth and the ninth house, is in the third house. It won't produce really good results for the sign until roughly the middle of it, until roughly about 2 weeks from now. But it is heading towards its own sign, and it's heading towards making what's called Raj Yoga for this particular chart. So that will be good within about 2 weeks. But for now, I would hold off on any risky investments or risky educational matters. Mars is in the fifth house. Again, you'll have to speak up for yourself career-wise. Not necessarily bad, overly critical bosses, and some interferences with luck. But basically, Aquarius doesn't look too bad this month. Again, it has some of the same afflictions the rest of the chart does. You know, finances aren't easy. But for this particular sign, actually, it looks a little bit better than most signs. Finally, for Pisces, we go into we have Jupiter in the first house along with the Sun. This is a very spiritual combination of very, so people will visit temples, they'll go and have they'll go to more church services, they'll go and have pujas done. So that's a good thing. For Mercury, though, they'll be confused about the procedures. You know, just if it doesn't work once, then it'll work a couple of times. Don't get confused by through communications. I think this is one of the big problems that Pisces will have over the next few weeks. Is there'll be a lot of confusion about communications. Rahu and Venus are in the second house. There's a lot of panic over financial situations, fear that what you desire will be taken away from you. Moon is in the third house. We have Moon in the third house. This is really a good placement, and it'll allow you to actually overcome certain obstacles and actually help children out. Mars is in the fourth house, so there will be disputes with family members about possessions or property. That shows up pretty strongly, not for every Pisces, Sun, and Taurus, but certainly about there'll be arguments in the home. K2's in the eighth. That's not a bad placement. It does tend to encourage spiritual growth and spiritual activity. And Saturn in the 12th encourages spending, but for spiritual purposes. So that's it for the individual signs for this month. And let's go back to the chart and look at the astrolocality report. And I'm going to see if I can get this to really grow to match the screen because I have a little bit of time. All right. And go back here, take it down and put it up again. Oh, excellent. Okay, so this is what I wanted to I wanted to put up. And let's see where Saturn is. Saturn's over Hawaii. So this should give some problems to Hawaii in terms of income. Okay. I'm not seeing anything really catastrophic happening in Hawaii. We're not really seeing. The only thing I can look at, Saturn typically causes air catastrophes, or in Aquarius in particular. Aquarius is an air sign, so flights over Alaska, flights over Western Canada. Anybody flying should be cautious about that. It doesn't mean you're destined to get into a plane crash, but be careful about that. Moon is also next to Saturn, so actually Hawaii should show up, and the South Pacific should show up in the news a little bit. We have Sun line and Mercury line running over Oregon and a little bit into California. And what's the third line? Sun, Mercury, Jupiter. Okay, so basically, and we have Rahu intersecting over Idaho, Montana, and Washington State, and it looks like Nevada and Utah to a certain uh, and Wyoming to a certain extent, all the way down to I believe I have to look carefully. That's Arizona, and there's a Venus line over Mexico. So this part of the country looks like it's going to have continuing weather problems, continuing out migrations of businesses. There was one restaurant chain that's leaving Portland. Cracker Barrel. Sorry, I couldn't think of it. I saw that in the news recently, and I think we're going to see more out migrations of business from California, Washington, and Oregon. The other thing is you'll also see some dismay uh, over immigration because Rahu essentially rules immigration. It rules over people who aren't native to the country, and and essentially this particular part of the country, including Texas, but especially through New Mexico and Arizona, will have some immigration problems running all the way up through, I think, into Canada. Um, we have a moon line running through Texas. Texas will experience some financial losses, maybe some flooding. There's a little bit of a problem also. Moon is with Mars. So Mars rules energy, Mars rules things that come out of the ground. Moon also has to do with fluids. It's a fluidic planet. So, excuse me, this is really irritating thing right here. Sorry about that, folks. Um, if I were a better editor, you wouldn't see that, but I don't have a lot of time to edit right now, but I will. And you'll also see, I think, some problems in uh, in Central America with some flooding, and also down to Argentina and Chile. Sounds unlikely, but Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, that part of South America. Um, it looks like a kind of a bad weather scenario, and this will also affect my part of the state, which is my part of the country, which is right here in Massachusetts, and also there'll be some fights or violence either in Massachusetts or even in Maine. The boundary between Maine um, and Canada looks like a hot point. Also, uh, Santo Domingo, the island, Puerto Rico is a little bit vulnerable too, uh, but Santo Domingo in particular uh, has a Saturn line running through it. So economic pressure on this part of the country, also even some potential for aggression in this part of the country. And the middle part will obviously be affected by that because the economy will be a little bit affected by this. Now, does this mean bank panics in this part of the country? Possibly, possibly in Santo Domingo, possibly throughout South America. Um, Mars is transiting really over the edge of Brazil. That's a little bit dangerous for Brazil. It looks like the government will be a little bit aggressive because we have a Sun Mars conjunction over Brazil going down all the way down towards Rio, in De Janeiro, and um, Mercury line is running over. So we will be hearing some more about that. Now, again, the thing I always find frustrating about the United States is the major news outlets largely don't cover um, events in other countries unless they're major catastrophes. So we don't cover in general economic problems other countries are having. We only cover our own. And that's a little frustrating to me because I like to look at the entire world, but that's my fetish. That's my problem. Uh, but since we're in a global economy, I think it affects everybody. And let me put myself down in the South Atlantic because although there are a lot of lines, there's not a lot of land masses and population down here. So Rahu and Venus are in over Ireland next um, to Portugal, through Western Africa, uh, through, so some government scandals, some financial scandals in Ireland, Iceland, England, and going all the way into, I would say, France and even into Germany. So Germany has had some financial issues. I can't remember the story I saw last night, but Germany has had some financial issues lately. And if we go over here, we'll see this line over here. This is a Saturn line. So this it sort of like reinforces the financial problems that Germany's been having. Um, Sweden probably will be affected. So if Germany's affected, the entire European Union is affected. So this should be an interesting few weeks for Germany and the economic union and the European Union, excuse me. And also Italy's a little bit touched by that, but not necessarily um, viciously. And all the way through Libya down into looks like not Niger, then down to Nigeria. Um, a lot of financial issues in that part of the world, all the way down to South Africa. Now, if we go over to uh, Eastern Europe, we'll see Mars is at the outer boundary of Turkey. Turkey just experienced another earthquake, but right next to Iran. Iran's um, been accused of hitting uh, or causing U.S. casualties. So, so from this chart, the Iranian government's absolutely been involved in that. At least, and maybe the Saudis will have some some violence, as well as Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, and also Western Africa down to Madagascar. Will also be experiencing some violence and also some um, excessive government control. But I can tell you this, it looks like both the Saudis and the Iranian governments are going to start cracking down very, very hard. Um, in terms of the fight in the Ukraine, there'll be barriers to a peace being set up by other governments, and also in Mercury's over Iran, uh, that's Afghanistan, and up to I believe that's Kazakhstan, and into Russia. So there'll be um, some potential problems with overexpansion of government authority in those countries. Um, it's also some disarray because people will be angry in those countries. So we'll see protests definitely, but I think you're going to see a more repressive government response. India has a Rahu line passing through it, so there can be some financial panic in uh, eastern India, especially down by Sri Lanka, and I believe that's Calicut. And the Bollywood region. That's essentially one of the financial centers of India, and all the way up into Russia, and also some protests in it looks like Myanmar, and over here I have to look. We have moon going over Vietnam and China, so I wouldn't be surprised if we had bad weather conditions there, especially with Saturn intersecting over China and close to Vietnam and close to New Guinea and Indonesia. The other parts of the world, uh, Japan has a sun line going through it, so the government will be taking more authority. And let's see, is anything happening in Korea? Not really, but we do have that moon line, so they're going to feel more confident than normal. I'm talking about the North Koreans, not the South Koreans. South Koreans look okay. Um, so there are no major planetary lines. I'm trying to see until we get to Japan, and there's a Sun-Mars line hitting over here. So does this mean something like potential conflict with other countries, or I mean, this is way outside the boundaries of international waters, but maybe some kind of conflict at sea or something like that between two governments? That's possible. And finally, um, we get down to um, oh, I'm sorry, that's not New Guinea. That's Borneo. My apologies. This is um, hmm, I I apologize. I'm forgetting my geography. My most sincere apologies. Um, no, that's Fiji. That's Fiji. Okay, sorry, folks. Um, and over here, so we can expect some political disruption in Fiji. And over here, this is um, New Guinea, some political uproar in Australia, uh, Guinea, and I would say even into some financial panic, even in New Zealand. So no, nothing looks really stable right now. But again, keep your eyes open for opportunities to convince or win over people, because these are normally the best times to do it. When things are unstable, when things are a little bit, they're in flux. And this is where people are looking at Pluto in uh, transiting over certain signs in Western astrology. But I've never really felt, just personally, I've never really felt the need to include Pluto all that much, just because you can see it from other factors in the chart. You can see a lot of things connected with Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune through a careful analysis of the nodes. But I think it doesn't hurt to look at those planets. It's just like an add-on, maybe more like a confirmation. But yeah, the next couple of weeks are going to be a little bit challenging just because of Saturn aspecting Venus and Rahu. Because of Mars in Cancer, it'll make us much more bellicose in terms of relationships and friendships. And also because of a lot of the combinations that have always been present. I tend not to like it when planets are like clustered too close to one side of the zodiac. And the reason for that is because essentially it puts weight on that side, and it unbalances the world. So that's it for me. I'll be back next week. I will be putting more broadcasts on, and hopefully we'll have a live stream in April about the eclipses. I'm trying to set that up with my friend John Karazian. So we'll see if we can do a live stream, get some other astrologers on board, and talk about it. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you all soon. And God bless you all. I love you all. Don't worry, don't panic. And just stay confident that you'll come through everything fine. Okay. Bye.